welcome to our Agent Wealth Builder Mastermind. And as we shared earlier, it's live on Zoom every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern Time and 9 Pacific, and it premieres on YouTube every Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern Time as well. And that's because you have folks all over the world and the U.S. tapping in. So super excited for the growth and just sharing value with you on these calls. So we have our special guest today, Meena Sharma, who every time I talk to her, it's just like I just learned something new, and she's awesome. She represents eXp Commercial and is a business broker. So just really excited for the conversation today, and asking questions and just tapping her mind and her experience for the value that you're looking for. So. I just want to shout out our pages on YouTube. So with the same handle, Agent Wealth Builder at YouTube, and we have all of our conversations, as I mentioned earlier, are documented on there, as well as shorts and clips, segments from our calls. So please be sure to like, subscribe, and share our content on YouTube. And we are also on Instagram, okay, at the same handle. And it's the same thing there. We have content on there from our different conversations, and just we're always sharing value and connecting, taking feedback and comments. So I just love the conversations that we've been having on there. Um, and as we move forward, I want to note that we are powered by both EXP and Visit Realty Group. So I want to shout out EXP Realty. And just a few notes on there is we're a cloud brokerage and we operate in 30 countries. So 29 going on to 30 countries. And it's really exciting, to share and to talk about all the opportunities in EXP. So not just about working with buyers and sellers, but revenue sharing and sort of stock ownership opportunities, all the trainings and the conversations and networks on there. So shout out to EXP Realty. Also, we are also powered by Visitor Realty Group, and our value proposition is super simple, and essentially it's life by design. So everything we do from our tools, training systems are by design, and we have an incredible ops team that helps you focus on the 20% of income generating activities that you need to do to build your business and the life that you want. All right, so this is part of our incredible August lineup. I just wanted to shout out the previous call. I was sharing three books that I read. Of course, you guys know if you guys been following that I'm an avid reader. So that was the last call. Today, of course, we have Meena Sharma on here, who's incredible. The following call next week will be Melanie Bauer, who is the host of House Talk. It's a really cool show on just real estate, and she is licensed in three states, so North and South Carolina, as well as Georgia. And she a great friend of mine, and she's going to share tons of value. On the 26th, we have Ezekiel. Actually in South Africa, and she represents Easy Lending and has a VA company. So she's going to be sharing some value on sort of like systems and scaling and as well as funding opportunities as well. So be sure to tap in. I just dropped this here for a second, guys. If you guys want to connect beyond this call on a one-on-one, I'm happy to do so. You can reach out to me, several different ways. So my email's there, visit David at Visit Team. You guys can see the information, my phone number as well. And if you want to just connect online too, on the Wealth Builder social media platforms as well, you can do that. So if you want to connect, guys, feel free to DM me the word growth or just type growth in the chat, and I'd love to connect with you beyond this call. This is just an overview of the mastermind. Ultimately, what we're doing, the mastermind comes from the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, and it's just a collective sharing ideas to build each other up. So any feedback you guys have on this call, things you enjoyed about the call, or not any feedback to kind of like make it better, love to hear it. And our ultimate goal is to get a million people on the pathway to millionaire status through various means of wealth building. All right, so I'm going to unshare my screen and I want to hand it over to Meena to take over the call. I guess the first question I had is, Meena, like, what's your story? How'd you get here to EXP Commercial and being a business broker and you're traveling and all the things you're doing?
Amazing. One, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited. I love to share my story because it's not the traditional path. I think anyone can say, like, at some point, we all pivot, make adjustments, and follow the things that we're meant to do. So I consider myself super lucky that I get to do the things that I enjoy doing today. but it took literally my life's work to get there. And I think as you share that, it allows other people to feel more comfortable to pursue those things that others will tell you that's crazy. Because I also heard a lot of people share their stories, and it inspired me to take some of the leap of faith, some very recent, to do that. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
I'll go back to college. So I have an accounting and tax background. I got my bachelor's in accounting and my master's in tax from Suffolk University. And I was supposed to pursue a very traditional path in public accounting. So for that, you need a certain amount of credits, you get your CPA, and then you kind of work your way through the corporate ladder. I am not an auditor. I love math. I love numbers. I like information.
Hmm.
I don't like auditing books and financials. But the really cool thing about why I chose that major was simply because if you understand how money works, you can work anywhere and you can understand any type of business. Because you can make
Mm.
a lot of money, but what do you save? What do you keep? What do you invest? All of those are rooted back in accounting principles. And then obviously in America, we love and hate taxes. So you have to know how that works. Um, Two things are certain in America, death and taxes. That was like the thing that we used to hear all the time. And 15 years later, that is in fact still very true.
So
So
true.
that's my educational background. I worked in corporate for about 8, 9 years before I switched into real estate during COVID. So I am a COVID agent. I say that with so much pride, but it was really fun to switch into an industry I didn't know how to operate in. I didn't have a book of business. And then the world was shut down. So I didn't really, I consumed a lot. There was a lot of virtual calls and meetings. So I got to properly learn some of the fundamentals of doing real estate correctly. I think I did miss the just jump in the fire piece.
Hmm.
Um, but in a way, I think it worked out well. So I am glad that I got to have that moment of, okay, and then once we learned and things opened back up, it was a great market for everybody as long as you showed up. Um,
Yeah.
but I also was super fortunate. I actually started at Coldwell Banker, where I learned a lot of really good principles and how to operate as an agent. I was in residential for about 4 years, and then over the last 2.5 years, I consulted with nonprofits. I've worked with small businesses, and I started to learn about entrepreneurship through acquisition. The acronym you'll see online a lot is ETA. It's a massively growing space. ETA is essentially like there's a lot of boomers in the US. 60 something percent will retire in the next decade. All those businesses either sell, they get passed down, or they just shut their doors. And it's sub 30% businesses that carry over generations. Because if you think about a lot of immigrant parents or families that came to this country, started a business, no one thinks about exiting that business. Entrepreneurs are amazing at starting something and building it and growing it, and they don't always think about what exit looks like.
Mm.
But boomers are reaching that age where sometimes their kids don't want to take over that business. I grew up in a convenience store household, which none of my siblings are taking over. Both my brothers are engineers. I am in real estate, and so it's not something that we're looking to take over. But part of that is also because that business has changed. Convenience growing up was it was the only place that was open on Easter and Christmas. We were Indian, so obviously we were like, yeah, we're here, we're open.
We're open.
So it was like it was convenience was different. Now I think we're reaching a point where Amazon can honestly put your groceries in your fridge, and so people aren't going out to get those things. So businesses themselves are evolving, and a lot of stuff when they say isn't going to survive AI, it's not because AI is making systems and processes better yet. It's simply because we've defined convenience differently. We just don't live and operate the same. People aren't as social. Restaurants are in a funny place. It's expensive to go out. When you don't go out, it's more expensive. And so there's a weird cycle that's happening in the business industry where people are either closing their business or they want to sell it before it shifts too dramatically and their
Um,
life's worth, the worth of their life's work isn't worth as much as it was. And so this was kind of the sweet spot of how do we do this? And so as I learned how to buy businesses, how to go through that process, I feel like I ended up in a lot of dead end places of like you analyze the deals, you look at it, and you're like, wait, I don't think this is what it was presented as. And it's much more complex in the sense of your due diligence is profoundly different than
okay.
buying a home. There's only so many things that can go wrong with a home in Okay, I won't say that. I feel like there's a
You're-
lot of horror stories. It's like let me take all of that back.
Yeah, I
But
feel
when it
that.
comes to buying a business, someone can fully fabricate all their books and justify it and look at it, and you can buy something that is a dying business if you don't know that it's a dying business. And so I think it's more of a specialized thing, and I found myself. And I think I'm fairly educated and knowledgeable, and I like to research and do due diligence and all of that. And I found the process to be really challenging and frustrating. And
Wow.
I'm like, it can't be this hard. Like, and I'm not saying that the average person can't do it, but it very much was a moment of like, I know all of the things. Why am I still struggling to figure out how to buy a business successfully? And I have great community. I've learned a lot. And so my desire to switch into commercial was stems from the fact that it shouldn't be that hard for people that are smart, intelligent, hardworking, and committed to buy these phenomenal businesses that make a insane amount of money instead of going the traditional path. And so I was fighting between staying a residential agent, which, if I'm being honest with myself, I was winding down. And I loved the consulting work of working with a business, of identifying their revenue opportunity, thinking about their expenses. How do we optimize? How do we get ahead of AI enhancements and just make your business better? And so, as I kind of fought the space of I want to buy a business, I'm helping businesses, and I can't really quit real estate,
Yeah.
um, I realized that there's a sweet spot of I can actually help people buy a business or sell one, and pair people together where it makes sense. And so that would probably be the biggest leap of faith I've taken, because I switched to commercial for that single asset class so that I could have the resources, the tools, and then also have the community to be able to do that particular asset class and transaction type. EXP has certain rules around how we operate that space. But for me, it was that I stopped fighting the optics of what it would look like to leave real estate, residential real estate, and switch into commercial for someone who hasn't done commercial in that way, and focus on the thing that I was passionate about. So that's kind of where that's kind of how I ended up in the commercial space, focusing on a very niche asset class of business brokering. So that's my story of how I
Wow.
ended up on this side of things.
Wow.
The
And I
short
just,
version. We'll save all the trauma.
well, you know, what's funny as you're speaking, it's like I heard so many insightful things, and I just want to I have so many questions, but I wanted to make
Yeah.
sure I kept it open. If anyone has any questions, feel free to you can either unmute your microphone or just drop it in the chat for Mina to
Mhm.
answer. Um, and but I was like, okay, so that question I get is a lot of folks don't really understand how commercial works, especially
Yeah.
agents who've been in residential for a while. How was that transition? How would you explain it to a beginner, like commercial and
Hmm.
how that works? Like getting into that.
Yeah. So it's pretty, the way that I used to look at commercial was literally just by like the funding type, the way that it's funded. So four or less units is residential, financing, FHA, all of the products that are offered to a two family up to four, all of that's residential. Where you hit commercial is a mixed use building. So, for example, you've got an office, two units up ahead, hotels, any office type of space, industrial, warehouse, leasing, business brokering. And so it's everything that's basically not a place where people live and call home. That
Yeah.
is commercial, like that's classified as commercial. At EXP, we have a different, we business broker is exclusively done in commercial, and that's simply because I go into people's books. I read their stuff, I look at their tax returns, we reclassify their books to make sure that we normalize financial. So it's more complex than me looking at your multifamily and calculating your cap rate and looking at the potential of this and putting that out in the world. And so EXP defines it separately that way, and in my brain I also kind of compartmentalize it. But think of it, commercial is 100% investment. There's
Okay.
always an investment component. In residential, we occupy that space. Not that in commercial you can't buy your building and occupy that space, but the math has to math for someone to give you money to buy it. Whereas in residential, you can get away with, I like this house, it's going to be my family house, I'm going to pass it on. A little bit of the difference. So I would say commercial is 99% always an investment purchase, whereas residential can differ and kind of like overlap in both. I don't know if
Oh,
that helps, but that's how I see it in my head.
that's super helpful. And I wanted to segue into a question about So like there's different states. So of course, you know, residential to be a residential agent, you need to be licensed in the state. But I remember you mentioning that
Hmm.
commercials, like you can do deals all over the U.S. So folks who are, I know I see Javid. Hopefully, I'm pronouncing your name correct. You're in Dallas, Fort Worth, and you have agents in different states here on this call who watch this. How how do deals work as far as like cross states or different states in the U.S. or
Yeah. So with the way that EXP is set up in residential, if you and I when I used to work, I was in the Medford, Everett, like greater Boston area. Even to the extent that I had someone that wanted to look in like Worcester or Springfield, I would refer that out. And I genuinely believe that having market knowledge when you're helping your clients is super important. Like the Springfield and Worcester market, profoundly different how they operate, how they do things, knowing what street is good, what area is right, what's a good investment, what's happening locally. Having that local expertise when it comes to residential, and I know sometimes it's hard to let go of deals, but you have to think about the right thing for the client. And so, in that space, I think local expertise matters, and that's why people refer to someone in Texas to Thing because the laws and the way of operating is very different in commercial because our division is growing. So this is a plug to anyone who wants to switch to commercial. There's a ton of opportunity. But selling a business is selling a business, right? The fundamentals of it remain the same. Hotel, like certain asset classes, yes, you need local market knowledge, but the way that that side of the organization is set up is that you can do cross border, we'll call it, transactions, and you just work with the local brokers or local teammates. I still do partnership deals where it's like, hey, I have something in your market. Can we work together to make sure that I've got the books and all of that stuff, which is my transferable skill? But then, given your market, what are you seeing? What are the movements? So we are able to operate a little bit more fluidly across the country than in residential. And that's simply because asset classes are the same fundamentals across the country.
okay.
Whereas in real estate, residential has a lot more uh, like fair housing. There's a lot of things you have to be considerate of that vary state to state. And like a good example is Massachusetts is an attorney state. So after a certain point in the transaction, you pass it to the attorney. They do all the negotiation. They take it to the close. In other states, you have agents that do a lot of that contract work. So you can be licensed in 4 states, but if you don't know how to operate and what the rules of the road are in that state, that's a disservice to your client. Whereas even in commercial, attorneys operate across the country
Okay.
because the rules of the businesses that, yeah, so it's just a little bit different. But that's what allows us to fluidly be able to operate across all 50 states, which is nice.
Wow.
I'm waiting for us to add Puerto Rico.
Oh, yeah, that'd be awesome. I feel like it's just growing every
I
day,
love
so I
Puerto
wouldn't be
Rico.
surprised. Yeah. Oh, really? Do you have
Yeah.
partners down there that you know of that you kind of like communicate with, or just
Yeah.
a space you like to go to?
I have some friends and folks in the area, but I also have a lot of personal relationships in Puerto Rico. So a lot of my friends are there, a lot of people that are looking to do business. And there's a lot going, but even that, I don't think that I would personally do a transaction like that because their governing structure is very different than the United States. Even though they're a U.S. territory, they operate so different. There's so many little things and nuances that you would want a local partner. In that case, there are certain things I can do. I can analyze the deal. I can look at the market. I have familiarity to be good enough, but I would not do that to a client to be like, I've got this. I can fully do it, and then you're like, oh,
Hold
damn.
on one second,
Um,
right?
yeah,
The
let
nuances.
me phone a friend. Like, no, I would rather phone the friend from the beginning and just work together as a team. And everyone I've worked with across everywhere has been super collaborative, which is nice.
No, awesome. And I'm going to use a phrase that like I heard you say for the first time, commercial curious. So if anyone on
Hmm.
this call or watching this is commercial curious, what's the first step? So if they have someone who wants to buy a commercial property or a business in their state and they want to talk to you, what would you advise them to do first?
Yeah, set up a call, reach out. My Instagram, we can share at the end. And then my
Hmm.
phone number, honestly, is the easiest way. I don't have multiple numbers or lines. I keep it super straightforward. Just pick up the phone and give me a call and ask the question. If I'm the right person, amazing. If I'm not, I'll find you the right person so that
I
you
love
have the
that.
right person guiding you through. Because there's certain asset classes I also don't have expertise in, and I don't pretend to have expertise in them. Like if you wanted to buy a hotel, love that. That sounds super exciting. I'd love to learn and be part of that process, but I've not done a hotel deal. So I would recommend you working with somebody who has so that the right due diligence, if you're going to pay for representation and have yourself covered, you want to make sure that you hire someone who's done something with it before.
Wow.
But yeah, no, start with a conversation, ask the question, don't hesitate. There is literally no bad or wrong questions in commercial because everything is, it depends. Let's talk
I
about
like
it.
that.
And that's like what's
Wow.
so annoying is because there's
Timothy.
never really a clear answer of what do I qualify for? Is there a pre-approval? It depends. Depends on the property, depends on what it's, generating for cash flow. So it's very gray area centric, and therefore there are no bad questions.
Oh wow. Okay, so as far as questions, I have a few. So as far as financing, what kind of financing deals do you typically see? Is it just usually hard money lenders, investors, or just the equity deals, or all the above, as far as
All of
like
the
business
above, and
broker?
sometimes you can see a little bit of everything integrated into a single deal.
Oh, really?
Um,
Okay.
yeah, so I just joined a community where we think about creative financing, um, out of the box thinking. It's really not that I'm learning something that I couldn't have found on the internet. It's being in the space with other people who are forced to think outside the box because there are deals that the bank will fund. They have clean books, the accounts are right, the business has been run properly. They understood the concept of having an accountant from day one. Love it. SBA will finance it, low down payment. It might take 4 months, but they will finance it. A bank will fund it. And then there are deals that are like the books are a hot mess. The owner is phenomenal. Their clients love them. They're running a good business, but the back end can be messy. And selling and buying those businesses can be a process. And so that's where you have to get creative because to go to a traditional bank, that's a journey sometimes people don't want to take. So, how do we help our client have a good exit and think about how we can help that next buyer buy a good business and realize the opportunity is in you cleaning it up, setting structure, and all of that. So I love the fact that it can be a combination of SBA funded, you can get some seller financing, you can borrow the rest from private investors or family and friends, and then you do some of your own capital. So it can go so many ways. It's actually quite fascinating to see how some deals come together and how partnerships are formed in that space. So all of the above and then some.
Oh wow, that's awesome. And so it's so informative. And hopefully, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing your name. Is it Ja Javed? Dropped a question in the chat for
Let
you
me take a look.
about.
Business due diligence. That so
Good question.
there's yeah, so I can speak to that. So when you own a business, one of the most beautiful things about the American tax code is there is a lot of incentives for you to be an entrepreneur. So you can write off a lot of things, and people write off a lot of things, most that they should. Sometimes they toe the gray area. But when you go to sell that business, for example, there's a lot of videos on it where it's like write off your kids for $12,000 a year and they're like, folding envelopes and doing little things, right? That's a write off so that you pay less taxes. What you do on the back end is between you, your accountant, and God. But there are expenses that say I have a fencing business. My kids are involved. We're a family. They get paid out of the payroll. We expense some family things because it's a family owned business, your phones, your cars, your vehicles. It's all legit. It's all fine. But if somebody else buys that business and they're looking to be more hands off, you have to normalize financials and
Um,
make it so that a person who doesn't have the same family situation can look at it and say, a business on your end can only make 50K, but you wrote off $200,000 worth of expenses. That business is actually making $250,000, even though on your tax return it shows 50 grand. Sometimes people inflate and play with numbers. It's not that it's wrong, it's just that you have to do your due diligence to make sure that the value that you pay for that business is in fact based on its true revenue and not what the current situation is. I don't know if that answers your question. But you just have to do your due diligence in understanding a P&L, which is a profit and loss statement, and really go through that stuff and see what it is. And as a broker, we normalize those statements to say, if you buy it, you have no kids, no families involved, you have to think about hired help, you have to think about expenses you might write off differently. So we stabilize financials is a good way to put it so that you can do your own write off. But if I was to take the tax return value of that business, I would say it generates 50K in profit. The multiplier is 2x. The sale price is 100,000. I'd be doing a disservice to that seller because I didn't know how to do my job. Now
oh,
it's an advantage if that seller doesn't understand how to sell it properly and you as a buyer do that. That happens all the time in direct negotiations. But typically, we advise people to at least get a proper valuation so they don't leave money on the table because a business that could have sold for 400,000 sometimes sells for less because people miss some of those things. And in other cases, sometimes that stuff is just meshed in a way that someone can overpay for a business that actually isn't worth what it is. So it can go both ways, but you need to
Yeah.
know what you're looking at and match the expenses and the income sources to the type of business because there's no standard thing. There are industry stuff. So, yeah,
Oh, it's a great
it's a
question.
little bit of
Wow.
a long answer. It's a much longer answer, but I tried to be concise with it.
Yeah, well, I think on piggybacking on that, I was curious to know if any examples come to mind of maybe a simple deal versus a complicated deal that you've recently experienced or been a part of or referred, or do you have any kind of like
Yeah.
examples for folks that can help them
I
for
think
context?
Yeah, I think restaurants are generally pretty straightforward.
Hmm.
Whatever your revenue is you there's a multiplier that's applied. But then there's value to, do you have a liquor license? Do you have Keno? Do you have expensive equipment? That's not to say that those individual items bring up the value, but when you look at sometimes restaurants, they don't make the most money. They are one of the lowest margins, but people have passion, they enjoy it, they're writing off everything under the sun on that business. All of it's valid, but I think that those are smoother because it's very easy to decipher out expenses that should be in that business that will carry forward to a future owner and others that don't. And so there's value to the stuff in addition to the profit of the business. Because if you've ever tried to open up a restaurant in, I'll use Somerville as an example, or Medford, there's a lot you have to do. You have to set up the right infrastructure, you have to have a consultant, you have to go through permitting, you have to have expensive hoods to air out whatever you're making. That
Well,
has a cost to it. So sometimes, even if the business doesn't have a profit, someone spent a ton of time, money, and effort, it's permitted for you to walk in and change the concept and be on your merry way versus it takes 6 to 8 months to set up a proper restaurant. So sometimes the value is not always driven by revenue, and I love that about restaurants is that it puts an emphasis and a value on the work that someone puts to get it set up, even if it's not the most profitable business. So I think those are cleaner transactions than sometimes other things that have like labor, materials, and install and stuff like that. One of those.
oh, awesome. I think I just want to make sure it
We
seems like
were
my
frozen for a second.
yeah. Did I freeze? Is that me? Oh, I'm here. Can I?
I'm
Everybody?
not sure. It could have been me, honestly.
Yeah, well, I definitely could hear you though, so that's
Oh,
great.
okay.
Um, as far as
Perfect.
like, and I think it's helpful to hear the different business types. And I think based on your experience, and again, guys, if you have any more questions, just feel free to drop them as I fire away because I'm a super curious person too.
Yep.
And okay, so based on your experience, I hear a lot, but I have conversations with agents, and they're like, okay, what do I do? What are some steps to take in my first like 90 days? So we hear like the usually the 30, 60, 90-day framework.
Mhm.
Like given your experience now and where you kind of like where you are with all the things that you're doing, what advice would you give to someone just starting out or restarting in real estate and they have their first 90 days and they need to kind of get going? And maybe three tips or five or just anything, even one. What would you recommend?
I will only give one tip because it was the one that I held back the longest was stop worrying so much about what other people think. I
Wow.
probably knew that I belonged in this space a lot longer than I actually have been in it. And I worried about what someone would think if I left residential or there's all these stats about people quitting residential. It's hard. Like real estate is not easy. You have to work very, very hard. Even if it comes natural to you, it's not that straightforward. And so I think I thought a lot about what it would be to my mentors, to my friends, to my family of like, oh, you're shifting something or you're moving. And it held me back from being in the space that I 100% belong in because the things that I've done and worked on and the way that I speak about it, I've never spoken about anything in my life with that much passion and energy. And just from like knowledge, like everything I've ever worked on makes sense in this creative space where I get to use all of those experiences. And I am glad that at some point I stopped caring. I don't mean that in a disrespectful way, but just in a way of
Yeah.
like, no one really cares if you pivot or shift. Like if you're in the wrong space or at the wrong brokerage or you're at the wrong team, make the move. Like we think so much about optics and then you realize the world is insane. Do the thing. Do the thing. We don't know what tomorrow looks like anyways. So I won't give any other advice because I think a lot of it exists, but that's the one that I like struggled with the most. So I'll share that one.
Wow, that's so powerful though. It's like,
Yeah.
especially with folks, I kind of
I'm
see
like, it's
folks
super
selling.
vulnerable. I'm a little
Yeah.
uncomfortable.
Yeah, well, I was gonna ask you if you're comfortable asking more questions. Like, how was that as far as like family and close friends and those like those who maybe you value their opinion. How was that making that shift? And especially for
Yep.
those who are kind of pivoting from a different career into this space, real estate space. You mind sharing on that too as well? Or?
Yeah. No, I mean, my family and friends all have learned to understand that this is a skill set. It's an area that I'm passionate about. So I didn't get as much like, oh, why are you shifting? But
Mm.
I'm old enough to think about a pivot that you make like in your 30s, like versus your like 20s when you're early. Like some people find their thing early, that's beautiful. But to be fully in your career and to make a shift from like starting from scratch, there is a moment of like, okay, are you sure? Are you good? And it all comes from a really good place. And I got a lot of it. But I knew that I needed to take this jump because then I would always wonder what, like, the thing that I struggled with buying a business, it shouldn't be this hard, and it is. And I'm learning a ton in the space. But I think when we worry too much about everyone else's opinion, you do a disservice to yourself.
Oh,
And I think I stopped worrying about the other people. And I'm like, if it's the right thing and if I fail, at least I tried. And I think when you adopt that mindset as you learn more about yourself as a person and you get in tune with things, and if you allow yourself to pause in the day to day chaos, you will recognize that there are moments when your mind and body and everything around you tells you to do that thing, but like you mute that voice and then you keep doing the hustle, the grind, the post on social media and do this. And it's okay to not always, like, I don't know, listen to other people.
wow, that's so
I'm
deep.
glad it's definitely hard. I have moments where I wish I didn't do it because I sit with it's a very different space. But I can't imagine not having tried it. So I'm glad that I am doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing.
Wow, and the confidence that comes out every time you have a conversation, and as you say that, I feel that. And how long did it take you to get
Yeah.
to that point, like to be able to mute that voice? I like that you said that, like to mute that voice and kind of make a pivot or
Ooh,
make a change and take
I
that step. For those who are listening.
a good year, year and a half, because I
Mm.
switched into commercial with no pipeline. I had no
Wow.
clients, I had no business, but I knew that I needed, yeah, don't do
Yeah.
that. Don't do it.
Yeah.
It's more expensive, the tools and tech cost more. But I knew that I wanted to be in the space and I didn't want to sit on the cusp of half and half because I was already doing that for almost 2 years. Where when you half and half, you half ass two things very well.
Oh.
And I can say that now because I want to believe that I was doing both things well. But like, if I'm being super honest, I wasn't committing to anything because I didn't feel the pressure to because everything was producing something and you get comfortable. But that limbo space always bothered me that I didn't have a core identity to what I was doing and working on. So the shift allowed me to, it was probably a good year that it took me to like, okay, just make the jump. You can always go back. But like if you don't make the jump, you don't learn what tools and technology is out there, you don't understand how that world operates, and you don't make that your brand, you're always going to wonder and think. And there's a lot of people who do the half and half, like that are in realty, that will look at the commercial space and try stuff, ask questions, partner with a commercial agent to go through a transaction. And if you like truly feel like it's your space, then make the jump. I wouldn't say go cold turkey, but then I also entered real estate cold turkey. So I feel like at this point, I'm a lot more comfortable with just, I don't know, I'll figure it out. But everybody has different finances and things and expenses to be mindful of and responsibilities. So obviously, sometimes that makes it harder to just jump and figure it out. It'll be what it is. I consider myself fortunate that I've been able to do that now twice.
Wow,
I
that's
certainly
amazing.
hope that I learn my lesson and don't do it a third time. Yeah, no, I'm like, I don't recommend it, and I probably won't do that again. But
Mhm.
move over with structure. There's so much you can do in the commercial transaction asset class while still doing residential real estate. And I think the starting point is ask your clients, how's business? Are you growing? Are you downsizing? All of those answers lead to a potential commercial transaction or opportunity, some which you may be able to do, others you can bring in a partner, and start there. Like if you're curious about it, you're learning, you're trying to figure it out, do a commercial lease. Someone wants to grow their business, hey, let's go see some warehouses. Partner with someone to get access to those listings in that business.
Wow.
But don't hold back. It's not inherently harder, it's just different. And once you start doing enough, it's like listing a home versus helping a buyer, right? Once you've listed a few houses, you've gone through the, oh, this is what I do when this happens, this is what I do when that happens. Commercial is no different. It's just you learn different skills and access different parts of your brain.
Wow, that's so cool.
So,
The questions are just firing off my head. Like one comes to mind
yeah.
is like so you love the like you when we first started chatting earlier. It's like you love accounting and the numbers, and that's
Mm-hmm.
a very it's two different almost like feels like different things. Or like you're just taking a leap and transitioning and pivoting, but then you come
Yeah.
from such a structured space. How is it possible? Is it possible to blend the two things as far as like a structured pathway to transition? So for folks who are like in that half and half, that weird limbo space that you mentioned, love that language like who
Yeah.
just need to go like either full into real estate, what are some practical steps that they can kind of do to take like budgeting or something else or planning? Or, is there anything you recommend
Yeah.
for folks?
I'd say the biggest thing is partner with somebody. So, and this is EXP specific, so I'll give that answer based on that. But partner with someone who has experience or is actively in the space to learn and see if it's for you. Because the way that our brokerage is set up is I don't do residential transactions personally. Do I help and tell people and do I have relationships? Yes, absolutely. But I also refer them out and partner with residential agents. And so just apply that same concept on the reverse and allow yourself to explore the space before you make that leap. I think that's the biggest thing I can say is don't be afraid to try. And then if you have a partner who's done it before, they know to make sure how to get it to the close. So you're not fully on the hook and you're not by yourself. And I know sometimes that's hard is when you're in the space of I want to keep all my deals, I want to do it all together. But if you successfully close a commercial lease, and that's big money sometimes, but you did it correctly, now you're going to have repeat business because you did a good job, right? It's like if you've never done a listing and you bring someone in, yes, you're going to have to share, but you also share responsibility. You also share the structure of someone who's done it. They're bringing their expertise, their principles. So don't be afraid of exploring it. It is honestly not scarier. It is slower, a lot slower, so that will drive you a little bit crazy. If you're like in residential, there's a rush, there's deadlines, you've got to meet them, and you've got to submit offers. In commercial, it's a little bit more lax, which I hope that it changes because I am not like that. But it moves at its own pace. And so all of those things I think are super important for you to learn before you make a jump into that space, just so that you prepare yourself up to succeed and not feel frustrated because those are not things you control and that's not an industry behavior that you can change. That is an industry thing that the industry will like change in its own time, I hope, or I guess, yeah.
Wow, that's great. Again, I have a few more questions, but I also just want to make sure that you guys have an opportunity to ask questions because I was really curious about, can you kind of spoke to it before about the frequency of commercial deals and business deals.
Mm-hmm.
So for folks listening who kind of curious about, okay, residential versus business brokering and commercial, what's the frequency and probably like the commission, like maybe a range of
Yeah.
commission that they can probably make on a deal like that. For example, I know of course they're probably like larger transactions, of course, but anything as far as like range or
Yes.
yeah.
So to list a business, because we go through your taxes, we review your books, and sometimes that's a deeper dive if things look off or there's a deeper analysis. We look at the current condition, we look at the opportunity, we analyze any transfer of licensing or structure, whatever. Those percentages can range from 8 to 12, 8 to 15, depending. And then sometimes people will have a minimum amount per deal that they charge because there's a lot of work that goes into it before it ever reaches the world, right? Like we can't just throw out like, hey, I'm selling 2 restaurants, and then someone says, okay, they sign an NDA, they ask for the books, and you don't have that. You scare away a good buyer because they're like, why are you on the market if you don't know your stuff? And so there's a lot of work that we put in before it ever touches the public or it like shows up in the public space. So those can range from 8 to 12. They may not be big deals, but the commissions are sizable percentages, way bigger than the residential side. And I think that matches the scope of work. Like I have a client, whether it's a 100K business sale or 500K, I still have to do the same amount of work and diligence before it ever hits the market. And then it's not just you send financials to everybody, you have to vet every single person that asks to make sure that you're not loosely putting stuff out there about someone's private stuff. Because you do have to show tax returns, you do have to show books, and there's a whole diligence piece of it. And so you have to protect and safeguard that information, which is different. And then commercial deals can range from commission anywhere from 5 to 10% on listing and representation. I honestly base it off the level of work and the deep dive that I have to do. But I have clients that are looking to grow their business and they're looking to purchase a space, renovate it, and bake it for their use. That's a lot more than just, hey, let's buy a building, you close the deal.
Mm.
Like, I am looking at your business plan, I am looking at your funding options, I am connecting you with people on how to finance every aspect of this purchase, from the day that you decide you want to work together to the day that your business opens, can range from 6 to 18 months to 2 years. So while those
Oh, really?
percentages sound really good, they also span over time. There are clients that I've had since I started 6 months ago, actually it's 8, that will probably be another 6 to 8 months before I close. Will I make someone's annual salary? Yes. Will it take me a year? Also, yes. So
Wow.
it's a balance, but it's fun work and I like it, so it keeps me going.
Wow, that's amazing. And I mean, it was the length of time, but then the size of the deals too. So it's like that kind of give and take, like you mentioned.
Hmm.
And guys, I did drop her, Mina's email and phone in there too, if you want to reach out to her as well. But okay,
Yeah,
okay, so
absolutely.
what I was curious about asking about like and investing too. So say with business brokerage, is there opportunity as well for folks to build equity, or like have you seen people partner with like with the people who are selling businesses as well too? Or so folks tend to ask, some people ask about investing as well and like long-term wealth building.
So are you talking about people that like are bringing capital to a deal versus the operator? Say a little bit more about what you're looking to ask. I don't think I quite caught that question.
Oh yeah, yeah, sure. So this thing about folks who are like the investors, who any investors are in a deal too, is do you typically find like opportunity to like invest alongside them, or is it more so like transactional with the deals that you do?
I would say that you should be so careful in who you go to business with. That includes family and friends. Not that it's bad, but it's like prenups, right?
No,
Everything
yeah.
is good, and you should organize it, not because you're expecting things to go wrong, but when things go wrong, finger pointing is big. And this is, in marriage, I equate it to the level of business because that's your livelihood. I have seen businesses that I was trying to buy that survived COVID, that survived all the chaos, but as that couple went through their divorce, their business did not survive it. Like, it declined to the point where it wasn't worth a lot. It ultimately ended up being something that I couldn't purchase because it was generating nothing. But businesses will survive a shitty economy. It will survive policies, politics, and everything. It will not survive a bad partnership
Wow.
because it's your livelihood. And people get personal, pride gets in the way, ego gets in the way, and they're all valid. But who you go into business with and how you set up and structure it, so important. Don't loosely partner with anybody. Don't co-sign someone's business loan. Don't put yourself through that if you don't know who you're working with. But more importantly, you don't know what that exit looks like. I've seen some ugly stuff, and I thank God that I have not ended up in that situation myself. But
Mm.
there are people that I'm more than happy to help on their transactions. But I don't know them enough to put my own skin in the game to support your business if I don't know how you operate and what you're going to do if I take a profit and I'm not in the business actively and I'm just an investor. Entrepreneurs look at the world very differently, and you want to know what entrepreneur you're partnering up and backing. So,
Wow.
and I mean to throw a little bit of like trauma there, but it is such a big thing, and people jump into partnerships all the time without realizing the consequence of the friendship tanks. Now you're screwing over your own friend, and you haven't paid rent for 6 months. Now you lost the friendship, and your property's in a shitty place. So,
Yeah. Wow.
and those are live examples of things where you're like, until you figure this out, we can't sell because what's going to happen is we'll bring you a qualified buyer, and then the one person will be like, you know what, I'm just not going to sign the documents because you pissed me off this weekend. Great.
Yeah.
So
Well,
sometimes you have to put everybody on a power of attorney and have someone that can execute the sale so that emotional stuff doesn't come in the way of what shouldn't be emotional at all.
Wow, I know you mentioned that it can be traumatic, but I think it's great. And that's what I love that you mentioned that though. You spoke about that because a lot of people talk about all the good things you can do in real estate, and of course we know that too. But then
Mhm.
like kind of mention like the challenges that actually happen or like the kind of pitfalls to avoid as well.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that too. And I guess what I'm thinking about is if you there's so many things to take away from this call, but like what would you say are like some takeaways if you want someone to take away even if it's one thing from this call, what would that be? As far as like any whatever
Don't
you
limit
feel like sharing.
yourself to just residential real estate. There's so much more, and I consider myself so fortunate to be around agents. And I know people think it's just a transaction business. It's not. I know people that genuinely very much care for the outcome of their clients. And so, as you look to help them in their housing needs or renting a place or selling something, don't forget to ask that other question because they're still getting those services. They're just going outside. And if they trust you enough to sell their home, then you have a solid relationship because you learn a lot about people. You're in their day to day. You're literally in their home helping them with something. So it's no different than you saying, "Hey, how's business? Are you growing?" And to add yourself to be part of their journey because I've seen a ton of people, including myself, where your clients become your friends. So
Oh,
don't limit yourself because you personally don't know how to do it. I don't believe in knowing how to do everything. I don't want to do everything, to be honest, either. I'm all set. Like, I know how to do a lot of things, doesn't mean that I want to do them. And so don't be afraid to bring in partners and people that you trust and show up to stuff like this. Go to networking events, go to connect with people so that when that opportunity comes up, you have a person you trust. You'll figure it out together. But I think a lot of people, myself included, when I was in residential, didn't think about the commercial or business needs of my clients, and they were still being taken care of just by somebody else. So why can't it be
wow.
you? Um, yeah, I guess why can't it be you? It's the question I'll leave you guys with.
Why can't it be? I love that so much. And I
Yeah.
just want to, I appreciate your time so much, Mina. Thank you so
Yeah,
much for
no.
taking time to be on this call and share so much value. I hope you guys got as much out of it as I did. And I know you're at a conference and I want to respect your time. So
Yeah,
just want to thank you
absolutely.
again for being here. And guys, I did leave your email and email Mina's email and phone in the chat. So reach out to her if you have any questions, if you have any referrals as well, or
Yeah.
any sort of like things you want to talk to her about. Definitely reach out to her as well as continue to tap in with our mastermind as well.
Yeah. No.
Hey, if you have 2 minutes, I just want to have a quick
Yeah,
question.
Yeah, yeah.
absolutely.
Hi, Meena, and that was very
Hi.
valuable information.
Awesome.
I'm actually also in a business background, but
Okay.
transitioning into real estate and commercial real estate mainly.
Okay.
I get a lot of leads for people who want to sell their business,
Okay.
restaurants. What's the best way to go about doing that? I mean, right now I'm in realty, but I would love to move to commercial
Yeah.
side. Um, but right now, like, what's the process of taking a listing on the EXP platform
Mhm.
and how to go about doing that?
Yeah. So thank you for that's a great question.
That's great.
And this is something I've learned through talking to a lot of people. But the one thing about EXP you have to know, and I'll share this is a technical answer, but business brokering, the art of selling and helping someone buy a business, is the only transaction that you cannot do in realty. And the
Yeah.
reason for
Yeah,
that is because there's a higher liability and it's a bigger insurance and there's different type of coverage required because in a residential transaction, yeah, you might see your clients' returns and stuff, but lenders take care of that. It's not as deeply integrated. And there's a bigger answer to that. But the short of it is, Realty doesn't have the coverage to protect you if you do something wrong or an error happens. And so that one asset class has to sit with a commercial agent. You can still learn from the process and be part of the journey, but the lead, the paperwork, the responsibility, and the primary face of that transaction has to be a commercial agent. That is the only reason I sit in commercial is because I wanted to do that one asset class.
Mhm.
And so I shifted for that one. It is a higher expense to sit on this side. But for me, it was I can't do anything in the realty side, and this is my passion and my place. So
So
we
I
can talk offline, and
actually
I can give you like more information. But yeah,
Yeah, actually, I did join a commercial brokerage group. I mean, I'm like in a team, but they're also having
Good
commercial
to go.
section.
Awesome.
So I'm kind of looking into that. But I got your information. If I have
Yeah.
some questions, I'll reach out to you.
Absolutely. And that's honestly the other best way to do it. Because most of my business, I think I'm at like 90% last I checked, comes for realty agents. So I don't
That's
touch their
great.
clients' residential needs. I don't partner with another agent. Your client's information doesn't sit in another team's database. And I very intentionally do that because I am borrowing your client and helping them for their commercial stuff. And then the second they say I'm buying a house, I need an apartment, I want to flip something, I get the information and I put them right back in your bucket. That's how I operate. But a
Right.
lot of, because so much of my stuff is referral based, so I actively choose to not sit in a team. But where you have a team, you guys are working together and you can do both sides because that's how structure is set up, which I think is the beauty of setting up your business that makes sense. But if you find yourself doing more commercial things and you like that space and you like crafting the deal, I encourage you to partner with someone within your team that does business brokering, and learn more about it. And then when you're ready to make that jump, take that leap of faith, especially if you have a pipeline and you're getting leads and deals. You actually
Yeah.
should consider it. So you
Yeah,
can
I am
own the
actually
transaction and you're
considering
not passing it on. That's, I think,
it.
the
Yeah.
hardest part for most people because they're personal relationships. They're not random people.
True.
And so you want to be part of it, that's the best way to do it.
Okay. Thank you.
Awesome. And then you've got my info if you think of anything else.
Sure. I'll email or text you.
Perfect. Amazing.
Love
Okay.
that.
Thank
Great
you.
question.
Great.
Thank you, Javed.
Yeah.
Mina,
No,
thank you
it's the
guys.
one technicality that everybody struggles with. So
Oh,
I'm like, the one thing you can't do. That's it. Everything
yeah.
else, mess around, learn, bring someone in, explore. But that was my reason for switching. So that tells you anything. I'm very committed to my niche.
I love that. Although one reason why it's like, yeah, it's great that you're on the call with us and sharing this value. And I love that this is gonna be on YouTube too to get out there to our folks and like our
Perfect.
databases and things like that. So once again,
Yeah.
I appreciate you so
Awesome.
much. Yeah. Guys, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. It was a pleasure.
Yes,
Cool.
enjoyed it. All right, guys. Have a good
Awesome.
week,
Everyone,
guys.
Thank you. Thank you, Mina. Thank you,
have a
David.
good rest
You're
of
very
your
welcome.
day, you guys.
Bye bye. See ya.
All right. Bye.